my number two is The Fabelmans, directed by Steven Spielberg. I also watched this movie two times, and it's even hard to kind of talk about this movie because on the surface and the marketing of the movie, this movie is like, oh, movies are great, or Spielberg's life story, or all
Right.
of those things. And I almost feel like the marketing department really fucked up on that, because this movie is so much more. So for a second, if you just forget that this is not about Spielberg, this is like a very dark kind of vignette kind of movie about coming of age of on one hand. On the other hand, it's about this complicated, interesting relationship we have with art. If you are an artist, especially if you are the creator yourself, and how that pulls you and pushes you, and what that means with respect to family. It's also a story of a marriage.
Yes.
So, but it's not neatly tied in a bow at all. It's left for you to kind of partake in it, make what you want to make of it. But then on top of all of this, there is the hat of that this is Spielberg's life,
Right.
which
Right.
presents extra weight to it. If you want to take it, if you want to find Easter eggs of why he is the way he is, why he's made the movies the way he's made them, you can do all of that. But I know this movie has been criticized that, oh, this was not a Spielberg film, no one would care about it. I totally disagree.
Me too.
I think this movie is special in his filmography, even if this was not his life story at all. So, but what did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a huge Spielberg fan. Like we've talked about on the podcast many times before. His movies of one of my favorite directors, and I think this is by far his most mature and complicated work.
Yeah.
I actually was surprised when I was watching this film that he even made this. Not because it's not well made or anything like that, but I didn't think this was the type of artist that he was, to be able to be so incredibly personal at points where, like, there were times I felt uncomfortable, honestly, like watching the movie, because I'm like, this is something you shouldn't, like, I don't know who this person, I don't know Spielberg personally. Like, why is he telling me like his deepest, darkest emotional pain and the things that, like, you clearly can tell have been weighing on him his entire life? And then, we had talked about in the episode we had where we reviewed Catch Me If You Can, where I saw that movie for our podcast. I've seen it many times before, but after seeing Fabelmans, and it made me reevaluate it in a different way. And now I do think about Steven Spielberg's films all in different ways now. I know this extra layer. I mean, a lot of the stuff with his parents I knew about. That was common knowledge, not to the level of detail, though, that he got into on this. And it really just puts his whole filmography, I think, there's another layer to it now in every one of his films that you could explore. I mean, I thought this movie was absolutely fantastic. And just, again, shocking that Steven could make a movie like this. Like, some of my favorite scenes of the year were in this film, especially that moment when, his parents are, his parents are getting divorced, and one of his sisters is like crying about it. And there's this quick shot of like Steven, or the Steven stand-in, Tammy or Sammy Fabelman. Yeah. Sammy Fabelman. Sammy Fabelman is like filming them, and you catch it through like the mirror, and it just show just how that is the only way he's able to deal with his own emotional pain is through art. And then the hallway scene at the end of the film is
the
just
hallway
like
scene is just
absolutely one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
Episode of him making the student film and showing it, and how funny the movie is, how heartfelt, performances amazing. I know Michelle Williams has gotten some criticism for this movie. I love her.
What did they say? I didn't hear that. Like,
that very over the top, but I love,
that's the part.
She's so great. That is the part. Gabriel LaBelle, incredible.
Oh yeah.
All the crafts. John Williams, once again. I think Tony Kushner, this is they've collaborated so much, but to me, this is like one of the best collaborations between Tony Kushner and Spielberg.
Definitely.
Menschke, also, the way this movie is shot. I mean, this is stating the obvious because it's like all the masters operating at the best of their abilities.
Right.
But it doesn't always work and come together this way,
No.
So I know this movie will become like a masterpiece over time. It's a bit of a bummer that it peaked early, and then it just shows the changing of the guard, if you will, that It's almost sad that this movie is misunderstood, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was a financial failure. Like it barely made any money. And I think to your point, maybe it was because they were marketing it as if it was like Cinema Paradiso or something. Like, oh, the movies are magic. And it's absolutely, I mean, it is, I mean, the very last like 2 minutes, but that's not what this movie is at all. It's something a lot more interesting, deeper,
weird and complicated,
and so unique. Like this movie, it's like you said that they're at the top of their game, and this is all these folks firing at the top of their game, but they're doing it in a way that I've never seen them operate before. It wasn't like Steven's giving you this incredible blockbuster film like the new Raiders, and it's, you know, he's done it before, but now it's better. I just don't think he's ever done anything like this before.
No.
And in a weird way, it almost feels like his final movie. In some respects.
I hope not.
I mean, obviously I hope not. And I wanted to make more. And I think he's, you know, trying to work on what his next project is, but this is such an amazing capstone to a career. And yeah, this movie would have, if we did like top 4, top 5 movies of the year, this for sure would have been on my list. So I'm glad that we're talking about it because it's a really important film that not a lot of people have seen. And I think, I highly recommend people just go into this knowing that it's not kind of what you think it is, like a you know, like a Shakespeare in Love type of like, oh, now here's where Steven Spielberg's on a little bike, and look, that's going to be the bike from E.T., and there's like a boulder, and it's like no, it's not that at all in any way. It's I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's in a strange way. Steven's brand himself probably hurt this movie because people don't want to watch that. Instead, if it was just marketed as a coming of age story or whatever else, and horrible poster, one of the worst posters of movies that I've seen in years. So marketing on this one really messed up, but the movie's there, and I know it's going to find its life, and so very happy that you enjoyed it as well. And
to your point, you know, I did wish Steven had won the best director for this, but at the same time, even without that Oscar, this movie will be remembered in his filmography and just in general. In 30 years, people will be talking about this. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.